experience, but she would seem like she was.
She's fine with it.
Brian? Good evening. We have, before we call this meeting to order, we're going to turn the microphone over to the mayor, and the mayor has not one but two proclamations that he would like to read and issue tonight. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. President and Council. The first one I'd like to present is to Mr. Fred Asbick, so I'm going to ask him, and if his family would like, or it's up to them. I may have just put him on the spot. And again, with your permission, can I?
Please.
I
Please
turn
face
back?
them, not
Mr.
us.
Higginbotham, we'll turn around and get you a good picture for your page before it's over with. Come on over, Fred. Don't come on the road. So we have a proclamation that I'd like to present, and if you'll indulge me for just a moment, I want to read it to the public. It says, whereas the mayor and Homewood City Council recognize the importance of the Planning Commission in our community, and whereas the mayor and Homewood City Council appreciate the vital role placed by those individuals who, as local commission members, establish policies and procedures to ensure the efficient and orderly arrangement of the city. And whereas the commission members serve as a voice that enables our community to preserve local management and control of our city, along with ensuring compliance with state and federal law. And whereas Fred Asbick has served with distinction on the City of Homewood's Planning Commission from October of 2009 to April of 2017. And whereas during his 7.5 years of public service, he's made significant contributions to a more effective planning program for Homewood's future through his experience, knowledge, and active dedication. And whereas Fred Asbick has selflessly devoted his time and effort to improve the public welfare of this community through his involvement in numerous community and civic activities, as well as his tenure with the Homewood Planning Commission. So now, therefore, I, Scott McBrayer, the mayor of the city of Homewood, and acting on behalf of all of our citizens, hereby express my sincere appreciation and thanks to Fred Asbick for his service to this city, and commend him for the exemplary manner in which he carried out his duties and responsibilities. Fred, and to your family, thank you for all you've done and continue to do for the city of Homewood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council, for your service.
And we'll turn and get a picture. Mike, you want a picture?
Oh, well, it's fine. You don't have to go any trouble.
Y'all come on.
Sorry, you really shouldn't have gone to that trouble.
Why not?
Thank you.
And Fred, if you want to say anything, Fred, if you want to say anything, you're welcome to. Okay. That's great. Okay. Mayor, so you have another one?
Yes, sir. That's where we're going. Yeah.
The next proclamation we have is for Mr. Mike Brandt, so if we can get Mike to step up here for us. Mike, it's my privilege to present this proclamation, and it's just a small token of our appreciation for all you've done for the city of Homewood. And we know that tonight we're honoring you for the Planning Commission, but Mike's also been involved and is still very actively involved in our Chamber of Commerce, business owner here in the city of Homewood. So again, it's our honor to do this. So I'd like to read this publicly. Whereas the mayor and Homewood City Council recognize the importance of the Planning Commission in our community, and whereas the mayor and Homewood City Council appreciate the vital role played by those individuals who, as local commission members, establish policies and procedures to ensure the efficient and orderly arrangement of the city. And whereas commission members serve as a voice that enables our community to preserve local management and control of our city, along with ensuring compliance with state and federal laws. And whereas Michael J. Brandt has served with distinction on the City of Homewood's Planning Commission from 1997 to 2017. And whereas during his 20-year period of public service, he's made significant contributions to a more effective planning program for Homewood's future through his experience, knowledge, and active dedication. And whereas the City of Homewood has greatly benefited from his valuable leadership and guidance as both chairman and vice chairman of Homewood's Planning Commission, and whereas Michael J. Brandt has selflessly devoted a significant amount of time and effort to improve the public welfare of this community through his involvement in numerous community and civic activities, as well as his long tenure with the Homewood Planning Commission. So now, therefore, I, Scott McBrayer, Mayor of the City of Homewood, acting on behalf of all of our citizens, hereby express my sincere appreciation and thanks to Michael J. Brandt for his service to this city and commend him for the exemplary manner in which he's carried out his duties and responsibilities. Mike, again, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mayor. No, it's just, see him?
Yeah. We've made Mike the photographer for the night.
All right.
Anything?
No, it's just been an honor and a privilege, and, be around, and best of luck to everybody.
Good.
Thank you, Mike.
Very much. So y'all give Mike and Mr. Fred
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Brandt, I don't know if you'll allow me to tell everyone how far back you and I go as manager trainees together in Gayfors in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. 1975. That's how long Mike and I have known each other. So I'm honored to call you my friend. So thank you very much. We're going to call this meeting to order. Reverend Jacks, are you here somewhere? No Reverend Jacks. Okay. I will give the invocation, and I'm going to put some other folks on the spot a little bit. We've got several members of Boy Scout Troop 83 here. Where are y'all based? I should know.
Dawson.
At Dawson, great. We would love for y'all to come lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance after the invocation, which means work your way up here now, and it doesn't have to be overly organized. I'll do it this time, Mr. Jones. So if you will, stand with me, and the pledge will follow the invocation. So bow with me, please. Lord God, we have many, many blessings to thank you for. We thank you for the opportunity to live in this wonderful city. We pray tonight that you would guide us with wisdom and thoughtfulness as we work together for what we all truly believe is best for Homewood. Lord God, we want to thank you tonight for each and every employee of Homewood who has for so many years served this community well. We're surrounded with so much talent and ability, and we just thank you for that. All of this, Lord God, we lift up in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, turn with me, please, or turn with them, please.
Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, young men. And just as a sidebar, they're here working on merit badge, as I'm told, so we appreciate them being here. Let's start with a roll call. Ms. Salter?
Yes, sir. Mr. Gwaltney?
Here.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Here.
Mr. Wolverton?
Here.
Mr. McCluskey?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mrs. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Wyatt?
Here.
Mrs. Andress?
Here.
Mr. Wright? and Mr. Limbaugh.
Here, so we have a quorum. We'll move on to reading of the minutes from the council meeting of April 24th, 2017. Chair would welcome a motion for dispensing of those readings and approving of said minutes.
So moved.
Motion from Ms. Andrus, second from Ms. Smith. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that is unanimous. All right, we're going to move on to some board vacancies. I'm going to start with Ms. Andrus.
Yes, I have several tonight. I'm going to appoint an at-large vacancy or I'm going to nominate, I should say, for the HDRA, IDB, CDA, otherwise known as Development Board, Mr. Thomas Reed, and he is here, so I'd like to nominate him for that position. I also would like, do we do these one by one?
Yeah,
or-
let's do one at a time.
Okay.
No. Each board is separately contained.
Oh,
Nominate whatever board you want to be serving on, but they're each. Well, let's nominate him for the.
this would be for the Development Board.
downtown,
Yes, the
development,
Downtown,
yes.
Development Board. Thank you. Thanks, sorry, Mike. Thank you.
All right, and this, I'm sorry, this is,
Mr. Thomas Reed is
okay,
here with
good,
us tonight.
yes, sure, good to see you. All right, Mr. Thomas Reed, okay, so we have a motion from, or a nomination from Ms. Andrus. Do we have a second? Second from Mr. Higginbotham. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And so, Mr. Reed, so be it. Thank you very much for your future service. We appreciate it. So, Ms. Salter, you do not have to contact him. He now knows.
We will still
so.
send you a letter for the record.
I also have two more. I have one for the Environmental Commission, and that is Miss Liz Rozelle. She could not be here tonight. She has a sick child, but she's already done some preliminary work, and she is good friends with Hans Paul, who's stepping down. And so I'm very happy to nominate her for this position.
All right, so again, we have a nomination from Ms. Andrus. Do we have a second? Second from Mr. Higginbotham. Again, any further discussion? There being none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is unanimous. And if you will let her know, Ms. Salter.
Yes, sir.
And next.
My last one is also from Ward 5, and this is the Cable Commission, and this is my neighbor, Dr. Andy Rux. And he is a professor at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, and I'm honored to nominate him for this position.
All right. So again, we have a nomination from Ms. Andrus. Do we have a second? Second from Mr. Wolverton. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And that is unanimous. So, also tonight, we will announce the opening of 2 at-large positions of the Medical Clinic Board. I would like to open that tonight and close it on June the, going by memory, June the 12th. Is that correct? Yes. So we'll close that June the 12th. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
can I ask a quick question, just as a point of clarification? And this, my understanding of this policy, it predated me, so I'm just, I guess I'm just identifying as it was shared with me. I know that Ms. Andrus had wanted to appoint Mr. Reed to all 3 of those boards. My understanding was that we were appointing people now concurrently to all 3 of those boards when we appoint them. But we have to do them individually, right?
One board only has 5 members.
Okay,
The other boards have 13.
I see.
So you've gotten misinformation, unfortunately. Each board has its own separately constituted duties and responsibilities, and they're completely different from each other, in spite of what might be.
These 3 boards right here.
Thank you for clarifying that. That information was provided by someone who was on the chamber board who also happened to be on one of the boards, so it clearly was not correct, but I just wanted to make sure that I understood that correctly for future reference.
No problem, Mr. Higginbotham. Thank you. Are there any other board nominations?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I would like to nominate Andrew Marlin to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
All right, so we have a nomination and a second. Nomination by Mr. Gwaltney, second by Mr. Thames. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is unanimous as well.
I'm sorry, who was the second on that? Okay,
Mr. Thames.
okay.
All right, good. Are there any other nominations tonight? This is very positive that we have this many individuals that are committed to serve, and I have to point out Mr. Reed brought his twins, so that's That's nice that they get to witness this as well, right? Not yours? Oh. Well, that's a whole nother subject. That's okay.
Mr. Lim-
Some twins got to witness.
We're glad that some small children got to witness.
Mr. Limbaugh,
Yes.
not a nomination, but I would like to
Speak into the
ask,
mic.
I'm sorry, I would like to ask the rest of the council, if you have a vacancy on the abatement board, which I think is the entirety of the rest of the council, to open that up for application. We need to staff that board.
Well, let's open it for tonight and close it again for June the 12th, okay?
Very good, thank you.
All right.
Can I ask a clarification on what Mr. Gwaltney and Mr. Thames voted on? Is that the Board of Adjustment and Appeals or the Board of Zoning, BZA?
So I nominated Board of Zoning.
BZA. Okay,
Board of Zoning Adjustment.
okay,
Yeah, I said zoning appeals, not apologies.
okay.
No
We have an
problem.
adjustment and appeals, and
That
we have
deals
like
with
7
construction
vacancies.
law. It doesn't have anything
Okay.
to do with zoning.
Thank you for the clarification.
All right, thank you. All right, I've got one item to add to the agenda, and only one at this point, 190517, which is a request for consideration of a parking study not to exceed $25,000 from 18th Street to 28th Avenue.
2,500.
2,500?
No,
No, I think I had it correctly.
we're talking about two different studies at this point.
Mr. Cobb, can you give me a little clarification here?
Are we referring to
The
one
parking study,
that we talked about over here?
yes.
25,000, yes, sir. Is there another study?
Are you talking about Central Avenue, or are you talking about
No, no, no.
18th and 28th?
18th. 18th.
Do you want to withdraw that, Mr. Thames?
I don't know why.
Everyone's looking at me.
You have that option, sir.
On Central,
I'm-
they are two different studies. We're talking about Central is
Right.
taking care of our parking, that we're going to put the sidewalks in.
I was referring to the study that Mr. Limbaugh had asked you to have done in this area here.
25,000,
Really?
yes, sir. Not to exceed.
Okay. That probably needs to go to referral.
Hmm?
That probably needs to be referred.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Let's change that from new business to committee referral, and we will send that to, are we sending that to finance or to public safety? Okay, by all means, finance. Okay, no problem. All right.
Okay.
Chair would welcome a motion for approval of the amended agenda.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. McCluskey, second from Mr. Wolverton. All right, any further discussion? There be none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that is approved. All right, next item is consent agenda. Chair would welcome a motion and a second.
So moved. Second.
Motion from Mr. Thames, second from Mr. Gwaltney. Any discussion, folks? There being none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. All right, we will move on to old business agenda, start with 290217, request for consideration to add streetlights in the Rosedale community, requested by Britt Thames and Andy Gwaltney. We'll start with a report from Finance. Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, the Finance Committee met on Monday, May the 1st, discussed this, voted 4-0 to recommend the approval and installation of 2 streetlights from the 7-cent gas tax. It's going to be at a cost of $147 per light annually. So 4-0 coming out of Finance.
All right, so we have the motion from Finance. Are there any questions for Finance? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is Resolution 1777, and that is approved. All right. 050317, public hearing set for tonight at 6 p.m. to consider violation of the driveway ordinance. Greg Cobb, our BEZ department, and our city attorney. We will begin by opening the public hearing and welcome comments from the public. I would say to you that before you come forward to the microphone, if you would come over here and see Ms. Salter to my right, and give her your name and your street address, please.
Falling apart today. Y'all got me nervous. I'm not used to speaking in public.
You're killing us, Mr. Khan.
That's my short show.
All right, we'll start with this gentleman. You are, speak in the microphone, please.
My name is Eddie Lumpkin. I have operated a couple of businesses here in town. I would like to take just a minute to introduce myself so you won't think I'm some road violator over here. But I have Metro Mini Storage and Metro Truck Rental. I've been in Homewood since 1982. And I helped both of my sons remodel a house at 704 Briscoe and 700 Warwick, of which all 300 things that had to be done, I think, were done satisfactory. This driveway, I must have misread the ordinance. I'll read it to you and see what you think it says. But anyway, I'm here not to argue. I'm here just to rectify and get it fixed and move on and make everybody happy. So thank you for your time.
All right. Any questions of Mr. Lumpkin while he's here? Ms. Andrews?
Well, I'm going to talk to you about the trees too, so I'd like the trees.
Trees.
I'm going to talk to you also about the trees.
Glad to talk about the trees. I would have already landscaped the yard, except they gave me a stop order thing. I've got 6 10-year-old trees planned to go into the yard. Some other various boxwoods and things that, evergreens that will go around that house. The grass, the yard is completely in, sodded 100%. And if you allow me, on this driveway, I've got a compromise that I think might make everybody happy.
Well, we're happy to hear it.
Yes,
Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The house, there you go. There you go. This is, the driveway is 41 feet wide. You could discuss the driveway. The city engineer and I have had a fun batting the ball back and forth, but if you measure it across, it's 41 feet. It hits the street at a diagonal. Do we have the other picture?
The survey.
Survey. Anyway, yeah, not there. Let's see.
I was going to say, can we make one go away?
Yeah, there you go. There you go. That's the survey now. You can see where the green area. I don't know if you can blow that. I don't know if you can blow that up or not. There you go. Is taking out 14 feet of the driveway, leaving the driveway 26 feet wide. Now, here's the reason that it is probably 30 feet from this lower right-hand corner to the floor level of the residence. It is extremely steep. You can't make this driveway straight up because any dust, leaves, water, moisture, snow, ice, any of that would not be able to get the driveway. Now, my thinking was this: if you also pull it back down, there's absolutely no backyard, no way to enter from the backyard. There is an alley back there. But my whole goal was to get every car off the street. I personally don't like cars parking on the street. Don't know how you guys feel about that. But the house needed to be able to park a car level, safe. It needed really that much drive. Maybe we got a little carried away. I'll read to you in the ordinance what I read. But it said if you had, I find this very interesting. Yeah, he was holding them back there. I picked them up. The ordinance said on this driveway access, it said if you had, and I apologize, I don't have my glasses, but greater than 150 feet of curb, but less or equal to 500 feet of frontage, you're allowed 3 20-foot entrances. Well, in my mind, I put in 2. So.
Is it 60 feet or 40? I think it's 60, isn't it?
Well, it says you can have 60. I put in, mine was 41.
It says you can have 3 driveway cuts.
But Greg, didn't you measure it at 60 at one point? It's 40?
The driveway was 40 foot 7 inches across the driveway. It was 60 That's where the 61 number came from.
Okay.
Mi-
He's
mi-
got a plan to reduce that.
Yes.
Mr. Lumpkin, the intent of that was to allow people who wanted to have half moons or circles to have two 20-foot entrances and the possibility of a third 20-foot into a garage similar to what you have right now. I can promise you, there was no intention to have 40 feet in one. I mean, that
Well,
was not the
and
intent.
again, I promise you, I am not here to debate or argue that. I want to fix this. Listen, I got 3 big projects out on West Oxmoor Road, and I need to be in your good graces every single day. I don't need to be up here arguing about you. I need to be bringing revenue to the city. But anyway, the driveway today is 41 feet wide. I have a saw joint at 26 feet. I'd like to continue that saw joint with your yellow. I'd like to cut that out, grass that, maybe put some landscape in that area. That really changes. Another thing that will change this is time. Concrete is white when you first pour it. If this had a season to go on it, probably nobody would ever say anything about it because it would be more earth tone color.
I have a slew of emails from neighbors complaining. I mean, I do.
Well, now let me say this. I know you solicited those emails, and again, I cannot argue with you.
No, I sent out an email.
A blast.
No, I sent out a list saying that we had a public hearing tonight,
Okay.
so I was
Okay.
not soliciting opinions.
I also have had 10 neighbors. The neighbor on the upper side has come to me and said, "You absolutely changed the value of my home." I've had 10 residences come to me and say, "Thank you for this house was taken in taxes, the power was turned off, and nobody had lived there for 5 or 6 years. Or the person that lived there without utilities." Let me correct that. I think actually a hermit did live in there. But to have this in my neighborhood would certainly be, it is very pleasing. I mean, again, what I'm trying to do is not to argue, just trying to say, I have a complete landscaping plan. I'd like to put in mature trees. I'd like to landscape around the house and cut this 14 feet out, narrow the driveway down to 26 feet. Let's be friends and move on.
Have you submitted a plan
Yeah.
has the landscaping plan been submitted to you?
No, ma'am, he's got one here tonight, the pictures he just showed about removing 13 feet of asphalt, and he's not showing me what plants will go there in that 13 feet.
Well, actually, what I have bought are 3 oak trees, and don't ask me which variation, and 3 river birch. So I think a river birch is a pretty nice hardy tree. And I'll put more trees there if you want more trees. It doesn't matter to me.
Well, my other comment is, and I do have permission, Mr. President, to speak for Councilman Wright as well. So Peter and I are on the same page on this. My other comment is, I live up the street from there, and I've never seen a car parked in the driveway ever. So it's a 2-car garage.
I can't hear you. What now?
I've never seen a car parked in the garage, on the driveway rather, or on the street. So if the hardship is that you need extra parking, I have yet to see a car parked in the driveway.
Ma'am, I'm gonna beg your pardon. There's not but 2 people live there, and they park in the driveway or the garage every single night.
I know, but if your hardship is you needed extra parking for additional
No,
cars.
The hardship is this. You have to enter that steepness at an angle, at a diagonal. You cannot go straight up. I'm telling you, this is probably the steepest front yard in the city of Homewood.
All right, I'm sorry, Mr.
No.
White had a comment or question.
Greg, what's the measurement at the street with his revision?
Microphone.
There
you go.
It's on.
Well, it was at 61, he's going to subtract 13 from that, so whatever that is. 48.
So at the street, it's still 48 feet
If
wide.
he takes out 13
That's
feet.
not exactly right. Let me tell you this. If you'll look at this, can we see the, can we see the survey again? Okay. If you measure this road, if you measure it straight across, from green to green, it's 26 feet. It's 26 feet right there. The little flare out at the end, I can tighten that up. I'm not even sure what's here on this side, but what makes it appear a little longer is it hits the road at a diagonal. It doesn't come straight into the road. It's still a 26-foot driveway. It is a little bit wider at the road there. But again, you can't get up the driveway. If you make that driveway 15 feet wide, you can't get up it. And you won't be able to get up it in the rain.
Well, I don't
Yeah,
think.
I don't think 15.
I don't think any of us
Talking
want
about
15, yes.
The ordinance is
20?
No, no, ma'am. The ordinance
No.
is 60 feet. It's
No.
right here.
No, we can, again, Mr. Lumpkin, you and I can debate it all night. It is not 60 feet. It is what I told you, because I was very much a part of that. 2 entrances for a half circle, 1 entrance for a driveway, not to exceed 20 feet. Now, I'm not going to pretend to think for everyone else at this dais. But I think we've got an important question here, and that is, would it be, what he is proposing, I've got to look at Mr. Cobb, would it be 26 feet total at the bottom wide? Or is it wider than that, Mr. Cobb?
He's going to end up 48 feet wide across the street. So you've got, the way that, we have a diagram in our subdivision regs, I think I passed around to y'all a couple of weeks ago. It's 20-foot driveway, 4.5-foot radius on each end equals 29 feet. That's what it shows in our subdivision regs. And some of that stuff I scrambled back here a minute ago.
Well, I mean, you know, if the first number was a 2, then we may, and I say may, at the council's discretion, have something to discuss, but not if it's 48 feet. And you see my fellow council members not, you know, shaking their head from left to right now. I mean, it's a universal thinking process here.
The
Go
survey
ahead.
does show that it hitting at an angle, what Mr. Lumpkin, I did not see this until he showed me the survey tonight, but what you're doing, even if you made it 20 feet wide, because you're hitting the hypotenuse side of a triangle, is what's happening. That's what's happening in that driveway. And that is correct. If you look at, if that was a 90-degree driveway, it wouldn't act the same way. But you could make the same measurements. But the hypotenuse side does exaggerate a little bit.
All right. Any other, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Ms. Anderson.
Are you
Yeah.
concerned about, Greg, this is a question for you, are you concerned about runoff at all as far as there's as much concrete as there? Or would,
Not really, because he's got a lot of grassed area there. What's going to hit on the asphalt is just, as steep as that drive is, or that land is, you're not going to have a whole lot of absorption into the ground anyway. In a hard rain, it's coming. You know, I mean, little light rains, sure, but in a hard rain, that grade is so steep that it's going to run off a lot more than it's going to soak in. Now, where if he landscapes at the bottom, as he said, that'll become a flower bed. Once you till up soil and loosen it up, it will absorb better if it's a planted bed than just a sodded yard that's going to run on pretty hard. But the issue we have in Homewood is all the rooftops and driveways anyway.
We understand.
But his is so steep, I don't really think it's going to be a factor. It's not as much of a factor if it's flat.
All right, let me do this if I can, for the sake of time. Mr. Lumpkin, is there anyone else on the council that wants to ask Mr. Lumpkin a question? If not, I'm going to ask you all to have a seat, and I know we have some other people that want to speak. Did I see, Mr. Reed, did I see you want to come forward? Good, sure. State your name and address.
Thomas Reed, 603 Devon Drive. I'm one of the neighbors. I live about, I guess, catty corner, maybe a block and a half away. And I emailed Ms. Andrus letting her know kind of my thoughts, but after hearing what he was saying, I kind of felt like I needed to come up and clarify a few things. I don't think that is the steepest driveway in the neighborhood. I feel like mine is up there as well and meets code, and so do the rest of the other ones on the street. There are plenty of steep driveways over there on that side of Hollywood, and his I don't think has any more hardship than any of the rest of us have. Additionally, he said he wanted to get cars off the street. It seemed to me like you could park a fleet of vehicles in that driveway, and I don't think that there's a fleet of vehicles that need to be parking at that house. And then lastly, I just disagree with the seasoning. I don't think that, in a season it's going to look much better. I think that it looks bad now, and I think it'll look just as bad in a little bit more time. That's all I need to say.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Is there anyone else who wants to speak to this matter? All right, just for a point of clarification before we close the public hearing, this began with a sidewalk, with a driveway that was designed without a variance, without council approval. That's why we're having this conversation. For the general public that it's here, we're not interested in lambasting or being negative toward any resident or property owner, but there are rules and regulations that by law have to be followed. So, is it one more time, no one else who wants to speak? All right, we will close this public hearing. Where do we go from here, Ms. Andrews?
Well, I will say that your last comment, every email that I got said that this sets a terrible precedent, that someone comes in and does something, without permission, without getting the city's approval, and then we go back and say it's okay. Once we do that once, now we're doing it every time.
Absolutely. It sets a precedent, Mr. Lumpkin and others, that we cannot nor will set. And
Can I come back up here where I can hear?
sure.
Sorry, can't hear a word you're saying back there.
I can speak slower or into the microphone more. Allowing this sets a precedent that we cannot set if we're to govern Homewood as the laws and regulations demand that we do so. As one individual, if Mr. Cobb had told me that 26 or 29 feet would accomplish what we needed, then I might be having a different attitude. But I really struggle with 48 feet, and I think I speak without question for the rest of the council. I would say that's probably a 10-0 attitude in this case. So, Mr. Kendrick, where do we go from here?
You can either accept his variance or not, or you can refer it to committee for further discussion, maybe clarification, whatever you like.
Ms. Smith?
I would say that we had Mr. Lumpkin at the meeting, but this was after the first public hearing that was held when nobody came and we didn't get a response
Now,
from
let's say
anyone.
we never were notified.
You were notified.
We actually, Greg
You
did.
were notified twice.
Greg did notify y'all. But I think in this particular case, since we don't have a specific plan that we can agree on, it's either going to be a negative vote or it needs to go back to committee so that we can get a plan that we can get in with, because right now, the plan that we have is not one that I would support.
Well,
Let me ask you this,
putting-
just in the effort of saving
So-
time. If we amend this plan to whatever you guys can live with, because I don't want to waste your time on this. If you want, again, we're arguing whether it's 26 and the flare-outs at the end. If you tell me to cut it down to 20, I would have the flares. I still got to have a flare to, how cars turn into your driveway there. So if I cut it to 20, all I want to do is appease you. I said at the beginning, I don't want to argue with you. Cut the driveway down to 20 feet, let me have my flares, and let's be friends.
I think Mr. Wright and I would like to see it put in ordinance within the ordinance.
I'm sorry, say that
I
again.
think Mr. Wright and I would both like to see it put within the ordinance. So.
No, the actually way you measure it, what's happening is this driveway's coming at an angle, so it makes this thing wide at the bottom. It's only, if I cut it only to 20 feet wide, when it hits the street, if you measure just on the curb line, now if you measured the width of the driveway, it would only be 20 feet if you moved in 2 feet from, if you measured the width of the driveway 2 feet in off the curb, it would only be 20 feet wide. But if you measure it at the street, it's going to be a little wider.
29.
Well, let me, okay, Mr. Cobb, are you saying that 20 feet with flares would be 29 feet?
Yes, sir. That's in the ordinance. That's allowed in the ordinance.
Okay, then, Mr. Jones, please.
Then this is a simple,
Yeah, let's cut it to 20 feet and 29 feet at the street and move on.
we need to,
That's.
right. There's no variance at all.
That's right. I'm not for
Okay.
tying you up. I
Then
don't
we-
want to waste your time. I
And
know y'all got a lot more to
add
do
your
besides
trees
this
back.
driveway.
And put your trees back.
Ma'am?
And put your trees back, and then we'll be.
Oh, I'm gonna put the trees, I told you, the trees are dying because I can't plant them.
Then that's within code.
Yes, sir.
And there's nothing to vote on. Do we carry this over, Mr. Jones, or just dismiss it?
I would say we drop it, but we probably need to vote to make sure that it's within a certain
about to
time frame. We
say.
need to have it,
Yeah.
within our code, within 60 days, maybe.
That's more than fair, thank you.
All right,
Yeah.
Mr. Jones, is that your motion?
Yeah, that's my motion.
Will you drop it?
Yeah, move to drop with the understanding that this violation will be taken up within 60 days.
All right, we have a motion for Mr. Jones. Do we have a second? Second from Mr. Wolverton. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that is unanimous. We don't need a resolution.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
No, I don't think so.
All right, 050417, public hearing set for tonight for consideration of the zoning application of Charles Jason Emerson on behalf of the current property owner Cindy Wade to rezone 285 Palisades Boulevard from C1, which is Office Business District, to GURD, Green Springs Urban Renewal District, for the purpose of establishing a retail business. We would like to note that the Planning Commission at its meeting of April 4th resulted in a favorable recommendation of 6-0 put forth by Vanessa McGrath, Senior, our planner, and we will open this public hearing and begin with Ms. McGrath.
Yes, sir. This is a request to rezone 285 Palisades Boulevard from C1 Office Building District to GURD, Green Springs Urban Renewal District. And it was heard by the Planning Commission on April 4th. And I have the applicant, Mr. Emerson.
Mr. Emerson, if you'll do me a favor and sign in over here so we have a record of you being here. Records are important, so therefore anyone else who might want to address this issue, please don't hesitate to come forward and sign up. Now, come forward. No problem. You are?
I am Charles Jason Emerson. My current address is 2340 Pentland Drive, Birmingham 35235. And I am, of course, here for proposed rezoning of 285 Palisades Boulevard from C1 to GURD. And the purpose is to establish a family hair salon in that location.
All right, any questions of Mr. Emerson? Anyone? Mr. Thames?
Just a bit of background. Originally, he had applied for C2 rezoning, and the Planning Commission felt like that would have been a spot zoning and that GURD would have been more appropriate on the parcel. That's how it wound up as a GURD rezone request.
Thank you, Mr. Thames. I appreciate that. Mr. Jones?
This is obviously a residential house, and it was originally, zoned residential. What type of improvements are you going to have to make in terms of, providing additional piping? And, there's going to be a tremendous amount of work you're going to have to do on this property.
The only thing that will have to be done inside will be, nothing will be done on the outside, it's only on the inside. It is adjacent to plumbing that is already in there. All I have to do is add some shampoo bowls and redo the flooring.
You're not going to have to do any additional plumbing?
No, sir. The plumbing that I have to do is only for shampoo bowls and a washer and dryer, and it can connect into the same wall from behind where the bathroom is currently in there.
Okay.
Other than that, a hot water heater does have to be put in the location, but all that can be in that same area.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Emerson, I appreciate it. Is there anyone else who wants to speak to this matter? I saw someone else come forward. Again, please state your name and address.
Hello, my name is William Moore. I'm a resident of Homewood. I live at 200 Theta Street, which on this map, if you guys have it, is Lot 14, which is not directly adjacent or connected to the lot in question, but it is definitely in the neighborhood. I received the notice about coming down and voicing an opinion. I'm here with a few of my neighbors. We all have a general feeling that we would like this not to happen. so I don't know exactly how we need to request that or make that known. There's, for me personally, I know on Oxmoor, I'm sure you guys come down, which abuts with Palisades coming down there. That strip of land, which doesn't have any houses on it or anything like that, is not something that anybody would want to live in Homewood. It's completely junked up. And, from the fast food restaurants that are up there, the paychecks, payday loan places, it's a mess. I walk my dogs down that street every day, and it's an eyesore, so I look over towards the Homewood side and see all the houses. I don't look left. My concern in granting this variance or this change of zoning to this property, while I appreciate the intent about improving the economy of Green Springs and making all of that happen, my concern is that spreading down that street from Lot 5. I noticed there's a for sale sign on, it's either Lot 7 or 8, which says potential commercial at this point. So right now, I think there's 4 places there that are kind of zoned for law firms, insurance companies, et cetera. I know that if you get down, there are 2 people that are actually living in lots 9 and lots 10. Lot 10 is the one that is behind my house. And there's a very nice old lady there. I cannot imagine her having to then live next to, a convenience store, gas station, dry cleaner, any of the other things that might be listed in this GERD development. And I know that if we grant this variance, it will inevitably lead down to that lot, which is next to her. She's not going to want to live there. She's going to move. Then the lot behind my house is then going to be on the block for this. And if this variance was given to the lot behind my house, I would definitely consider moving, because I feel like the trash that is a result of what's happening on Palisades coming down onto Oxmoor will happen to Theta Street. And that's about all I've got. I know there are some people who might have some concerns, but yeah.
Thank you very much. Anyone else who would like to speak to this, please sign in first. Yes, anyone else, go ahead and sign in if you will. We do want to hear what you have to say. Yes, ma'am.
Marquita Calendar, 206 Theta Street. I've lived in this spot for 20 years. It hasn't been too many years ago that 109 Columbiana was changed from R7 to C1. Those first 3 properties coming in from the Palisades were C1, C1, R7, R7, R7. So that one's already been changed from R7 to C1. Now we're wanting to jump the street with GERD. GERD allows for a fast food restaurant. That is not consistent with abutting to a residential neighborhood. It's not what we want. I was a little confused when I got this in the mail because this, future land use, are you familiar with this? If this is where we want to go, yellow indicating residential, putting that property at GERD is not what we need to do. Because I've lived on that street for 20 years, I can tell you that when I first moved to that neighborhood, there were a lot of rental properties on Theta. And I have to believe that if you go back and look far enough, it has to do with those properties that we're looking at now being changed from residential homes. So Theta Street was a bunch of, there were probably 4 homes on that street when I first moved in that were rentals. Now they've been purchased. But this is not the direction that we want to go. Wrong zoning for that piece of property. It needs to remain an office building or it needs to become residential. And that's how I feel about that. You have any questions for me about why I feel that way.
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Alex Gast, 202 Theta Street. And as Will said, several of us are here tonight, and I think it's difficult to figure out my thoughts on it, because I guess I need more information. We were kind of in a scramble to figure out what was going on, actually. We all really appreciate Green Springs. Green Springs has a lot of good things that, that we appreciate. We kind of like the access to it. We can walk to Publix and as close as we are to it, and but there's that interface between all the busyness and the residential side. We always have to wrestle with what that tension looks like. How far are we willing to let it come to us? Just as an example, last week my wife and I were it was 11:50 at night, and somebody was blowing the parking lot in Publix, and I was like, whoa, man, this is really late, and we're getting woken up by that. So that's sort of the tension that you're always feeling. Like, you appreciate Green Springs, but you don't want the noise kind of continue to come. So I guess the fear is that as those properties get rezoned, if it were to go outside of a 9 to 5 range, and I assume that's what it would allow for. Am I right? With that rezoning, it could be open to that, right? Okay.
There's actually there's no business hours tied to zoning.
To GER.
No.
That's right.
Okay, but at least opens for that.
Well, I make that point to say it could be open much later than that.
Okay, gotcha. All right, but I think I voiced what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? All right, what I'd like to do is to continue this public hearing because Cindy Wade was not available tonight. Most of you know that Cindy and her late husband, Buddy, I don't know of anyone who's been more giving over the decades, literally, to Homewood of their time, their resources, and I do think that letting her have an opportunity to speak, what each of you have said is very important, and I definitely agree that there are directions you don't want to see this go. But I think we owe Cindy the opportunity, or Ms. Wade the opportunity to make some comments as well. So we'll continue this.
Mr. President.
Yes.
I'd like to make some comments from Ward 3, and I'm fine with continuing. I wish we would take care of it tonight, and I want to start off by telling Mr. Emerson, we want you in Homewood. I just don't believe this is the right property for what you're talking about, and recommending GERD is not a good idea at all, because as you're talking about late night hours, you have to plan really for what could be situated at that property, such as a drive-through window that's open till midnight that you're going to hear in your backyard. So, I'm not for this at all. It needs to stay C1. Just looking at the potential of what it could be, the whole GERD, and I was on the council when we established GERD, and it was really for the properties that were on Green Springs. It's the Green Springs Urban Revitalization District. It was never intended to be in a residential area. So I'm not sure really what the Planning Commission was looking at when they looked at this, but I know Ms. Wade has done a lot for the community. I just think this is not really something that we're going to garner any more information by continuing it. It's clear cut, in my opinion, that this needs to remain, and it just needs to remain, looking at what potential uses this property could be. I plead with everyone on the council. Do you want a fast food restaurant in your backyard? Do you want a convenience store right touching your backyard where you can hear all the noise? And regardless of the time, I understand the time, but this is not the appropriate use. So I'm not sure how we got even to looking at GERD being a recommendation. So I think it's pretty clear, and I'm happy to call Ms. Wade from Ward 3 and explain why I'm not for it, but that's just my perspective at this point. I don't see any other reason that we would garner any more information that would move me to consider anything but denying the request. That's just coming from me, and I appreciate you allowing me to share my thoughts.
Mr. Jones, I understand. I think that phone call might be a valuable thing to make, so I support you doing that. I do think that in the process of listening to what Ms. Wade might say, we might, in that time period, that time frame, come up with another option that might be more acceptable to the community members and to you as well, Mr. Jones. So, again, I hope you'll respect my desire to continue it at this point. Okay?
Okay, we just need to plan for what that could be, because I'm not for C2 either. I mean, C2 is restaurant. I mean, there are other things that I just feel strongly about, that under C2, which was the original request, you can still put a gas station right there. So I'm open to other options. Well, I'm really not open to other options when you come down to it. There are no other options that I can see. It's C1. The only other option would be to rezone it residential. And that's not going to be what Ms. Wade tells me on the phone. So I'm just saying, I'm not willing to even consider C2. I think we need to keep it like it is, and we need to clean up the map where it is, because we've got some inconsistencies with our own zoning that need to be corrected. And we were going to put that on the agenda tonight. We didn't add it, did we? We were supposed. Okay, so anyway.
Mr. Lamar, I'll just say, and for the record, I was not there that night. The planning commission had this vote, but a little more detail. They did recommend the GERD to try and avoid spot zoning.
There's no spot zoning.
I agree. I'm just, as a council person on the planning commission, I'm just trying to communicate what their thought process was. And they also felt like the lot dimensions would help to restrict some of the other business types that are allowed in GERD. I do think what this has done, because we have another situation, I think we have, like you just said, we have a gap in our zoning. The jump from C1 to C2 is a bit unreasonable. For instance, you'd have to go C2 to put a dentist's office in this house, and I think we're talking about two totally different things. I think that would be much more appropriate than the same zoning that allows a fast food restaurant. So I agree, we probably need to take a look at the zoning as a whole. That's just a little more background information on the thought process of the planning commission in this situation.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, I'll allow you to speak.
Thank you. My neighbors and I have come out tonight to talk to you about our concerns. I think that, yes, Mrs. Wade has been in the Homewood community for a long time, but I think it's pretty clear what she wants, because this is what she asked for. And being in real estate for a long time, I'm pretty confident that she knew what she was asking for. We've come out tonight. We would like for this to be resolved tonight.
I understand, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, next item is 060417, request for presentation of preliminary fiscal year 15-16 audited financial results, requested by Melody Salter, our finance director and city clerk. Report from finance, Mr. Jones.
Well, before we move on, I'd like to know that the residents are here. They're calling Mr. McCluskey and me for guidance, and now I'm in a complete abyss. Are you continuing it to the next meeting, or is there a date that we're continuing? I need some clarification for the residents that have come out with their twins.
We'll continue.
Can we get some clarification for what you're wanting to do here?
We will continue it to May 22nd. Okay.
And a quick question, if Ms. Wade came and proffered something, any large-scale change, wouldn't that kick it back to the planning commission?
That has to go back to the planning
Mr.
commission.
Kendrick?
So that's why I'm saying anything proffered is going to have to, the whole process is going to have to start all over again. So
you have to have at least a re-notice of the public hearing at this level. You likely could have something that's more restrictive than GERD would be acceptable, but you still have to have another public hearing. So yes, whether it has to go back to the planning commission or not depends on what you proffer.
Microphone, Mr. Kendrick.
So, yeah.
I can't answer the question until I know what she proffers. You would have to have, in my opinion, at least one more public hearing at this level, if not back to the planning commission. So I hope that answers your question.
No. Well, I'm asking.
Tell me what she's going to proffer and I'll give you an opinion.
Well, we don't.
I think that's why the president's going to continue to let her come up here and speak about it.
So, okay, so then on May the 22nd, do we post a public hearing? So does
No,
the
we're
pub-
continuing this public hearing,
Okay,
sir.
so,
It's like this isn't closed yet.
okay, so we'll continue it on the 22nd, 2 weeks to allow Ms. Wade to speak, and then at that point, we'll either get a proffer or we'll get a vote. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, and if there's a proffer, it'll go back to the planning commission.
And again, thank you residents for being here. We understand.
Possibly.
Possible.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Now,
Thank you.
060417, again, report from finance, Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, the committee voted 5-0 to recommend accepting the audit report to the city council, so 5-0 out of finance.
All right, so we have a motion from finance. I think we probably need a second for that, right, Mr. Kendrick?
It's just a motion and second, yes, sir.
Okay, so I need a second. Second from Mr. Higginbotham. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? There being none, that is passed. All right, 070417, request for presentation of mid-year review, requested by Melody Salter, our finance director and city clerk. The report from finance, Mr. Jones.
Before I give my report, I do want to mention Ms. Salter has just done a fantastic job in working through this. We've had auditors in, and it just so happened that the mid-year review happened at the same time as the audit, and so I just want to thank Ms. Salter for the work she's been putting in. She provided the report to us. We're doing very well from a fiscal standpoint. The only issue that we continue to look at is capital, and it just the way we're structured. But the presentation was made, and finance voted 4-0 to recommend acceptance of the report and send that to council.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. We have a motion from finance. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Smith. All right, any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and that 070417 passes. 110417, request for consideration of a fence installation barrier at 521 and 538 Edge Knoll Lane, requested by Anna and Stephen Shrimpf and Julie and Corey Johnson and Andrew Wolverton. Report from finance, Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir. The committee voted 4-0 to send out a recommendation pending the final cost estimates. And we're looking to fund this expenditure from the small infrastructure line item, but we were not sure on the final expenditure.
So we don't have a dollar amount yet?
Well, Mr. Cobb has it.
Mr. Cobb.
Yes, sir. I've got bids on this. I bid it both with a 6-foot fence and with an 8-foot fence. So the counselor can make a decision on that. And I'm going to give you the straight-up bid numbers, but ask you to allow me about an extra $150 in case I have to maneuver around a tree, because it's really by the linear foot. But for the 6-foot fence, the low bid was $1,563.
Okay.
For the 8-foot fence, the low bid was $2,660.
Okay, any other questions of Mr. Cobb while he's up here?
$2,660.
Greg, this is along the creek?
No, ma'am,
No.
this is along the Oxmoor Boulevard.
Oh, okay. Would there be enough difference between an 8-foot fence and a 6-foot fence to make the additional $1,100 worthwhile?
It makes a lot of difference to the noise coming off of that road.
Okay.
If you're over there, the truck traffic noise is unbelievable.
Pretty loud. Okay.
It is. It's
Okay.
very, very loud. It would help with that because it would be high enough. It's also on a little bit of a berm.
Okay.
To kick that.
To keep that a little bit out?
Yes, ma'am, it would be helpful.
Okay.
So your recommendation would be an 8-foot fence?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, Mr. Jones, does your committee recommendation include 2660 for a 8-foot fence?
No, sir.
What
But,
does your personal?
but I'm making it from the floor to approve up to $2,900 out of the 12-12-522-500 Small Infrastructure Fund to fund the 8-foot fence is what I'm.
Mr. Jones, I apologize. I put 3,000 based on conversation with Greg, so we'll have to change the
Well,
resolution.
yes, sir, I was trying to have a not-to-exceed amount.
That's
3,000.
Well, I'll say 3,000. So,
You'll throw in the extra $100.
All right, we have a motion for Mr. Jones, second for Mr. McCluskey. Any further discussion or questions? If there are none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Thank you.
opposed? That will be Resolution 1778. Yes. Okay. We're going to move on to 190417, request for consideration of an ordinance participating in the state of Alabama 2017 back-to-school sales tax holiday on July 21st through July 23rd, 2017, requested by the city clerk. Report from finance, Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. The committee met, voted 4-0 to recommend approval to council for this back-to-school sales tax holiday.
All right, Mr. Kendrick, could you read it?
Yes, sir. It's an ordinance of the City of Homewood to exempt certain covered items from the municipal sales and use tax during the weekend of July 21 through 23rd, 2017, as authorized by Act Number 206-574, generally referred to as the state sales tax holiday legislation. Be ordained by the City Council as follows: that in conformity with the provisions of Act Number 206-574 enacted by the legislature, the City of Homewood exempts covered items from municipal sales and use taxes during the same period beginning at 12:01 a.m. on Friday, July the 21st, 2017, and ending at 12 midnight the following Sunday, July 23rd, 2017. Section 2, that the ordinance shall be subject to all the terms and conditions of Act Number 206-574. Section 3, that the city clerk is authorized and certified to certify a copy of this ordinance to the Department of Revenue as to be recorded and posted by the Revenue Department on the website.
Thank you, sir. Chair would welcome a motion and a second for unanimous consent. Motion for Mr. Thames, second for Mr. Gwaltney. Roll call, Ms. Salter. Sorry. Mr. Higginbotham was the second. I'm sorry.
Okay, yes, sir. Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andress?
Yes.
And Mr. Limbaugh?
Yes, so this will be ordinance number 2655. Chair would welcome a motion and a second for adoption. I'm sorry, motion from Mr. Gwaltney, second from Mr. McCluskey. Roll call.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Higginbotham? Mr. Wolverton? Mr. McCluskey?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andress?
Yes.
And Mr. Limbaugh?
Yes, so 2655 is passed unanimously, and we'll move on to 200417. Request to authorize the mayor to send out requests for proposals, or RFPs, and set a bid opening date for the Mayfair Sidewalk Project, requested by Alex White. Report from finance, Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir. The committee met, voted 4-0 to recommend the council setting the bid opening date, May 22nd at 5 p.m.
All right, so this bid opening is set for May 22nd, and there's no reason for a vote, is there, Mr. Kendrick? Didn't think so. Thank you. Is there an objection? Good, thank you. 260417, request to consider fiscal year 17-18 budget request from the BJCTA, or the Birmingham Jefferson County Transit Authority, requested by Walter Jones and Melody Salter. Report from Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir. We had a lively presentation by the director, Ms. Murdoch, and the recommended cost service hour was $73.51. The committee in the end voted 5-0 to recommend sending the service hour cost to the mayor for recommendation of funding in the new budget. So sending that out 5-0.
All right, so we have a motion from finance. Do we have any questions or comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is a resolution, Mr. Kendrick?
No, sir, Mr. Limbaugh, the act that we were dealing under requires us to essentially tell them what service we want. And Ms. Murdoch confirmed that they wasn't looking for a response till July. So I want that in the minutes, that we're relying upon that representation, even though it's contrary to what the enabling act sets out. So I assume that in July, there'll be some recommendation from the mayor or the council in response to their proposal for what service, if any, the city wants. for
So
the
we
next-
we look forward to your recommendations, Mayor, in July, okay? Great. Thank you. 270417, request for consideration of a franchise agreement with Mobilite. Did I say that right, Mr. Kendrick?
Mobility.
Mobility, I believe.
Mobility LLC, Rick Fryer, Melody Salter, our city clerk, Greg Cobb, our BEZ department. Before anyone speaks, let me get a report from finance.
Why am I the only committee tonight? I'm like
We
only
obviously
committee.
like to hear you speak,
Okay,
Mr.
and I've been
Jones.
speaking way too much tonight. I just want to make that for the record. Okay, so the action taken from the committee was 4-0 to recommend approval of the franchise agreement, and then to strike permission to install utility pole to council. That's handled under the franchise agreement. So 4-0 to recommend approval.
All right, so we have a motion from finance. Is there any, who are you?
Rick Fryer.
Right, Mr. Fryer, have you got anything else to add to that, or?
No, sir, I don't. I'm here to answer any questions.
No, we're good.
Don't be like Eddie, just be quiet.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I would recommend that you sit down.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, all in favor?
No, we have to have a reading, Mr. Limbaugh.
Right, I understand. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Well, that was kind of ragged. All right, this is Resolution 17.
No, sir, it's an ordinance. and I
This is
need
an
to read it.
ordinance, Mr. President, so we
This is an
need-
ordinance.
so-
I'm sorry. Okay, well, let's start it. Would you read the ordinance?
Yes,
Mr.
sir,
Kim?
thank you. It's an ordinance granting a small cell franchise to Mobility. Whereas the city has reserved the right to exercise sound control of the highways, streets, alleys, and public places and to require city's consent prior to using the highways, streets, alleys, and public places. And whereas state law confers to the city certain rights and requirements for a franchise and permission to use the public rights of way, and whereas the franchisee has requested from the city a franchise to use the streets and public ways of the city to conduct business, to provide telecommunication services, and whereas the city and the franchisee have negotiated a franchise agreement which is attached hereto as Exhibit A. Now therefore be it ordained by the City Council that the City Council does by the adoption of the resolution grant to the franchisee a franchise pursuant to the terms, conditions, restrictions, and requirements set out in the franchise agreement attached as Exhibit A, the terms and conditions of which franchisor is specifically incorporated into this ordinance as they're fully set out in. Two, that pursuant to the laws of the state of Alabama, the city grants the franchisee a franchise for a period of 10 years, granting to the franchisee the right and privilege to use the public rights of way to maintain small cell technology facilities and equipment systems necessary for the franchisee to provide telecommunication services within the city. Three, that the franchisee, by accepting the agreement, agrees that it will, upon making any excavations of streets, alleys, public ways, or public places, restore the surface or paving of the same as required by ordinance. Section 5, that the rights and privileges and authorities and consents hereby granted may be exercised by the franchisee, but not by any of his successors or assigns without the prior approval of the city, which shall not be unreasonably withheld. Section 5, that the ordinance has been accepted by the franchisee. Upon such exception will be constituted a franchise agreement between the city and the franchisee. Passed and adopted this the blank day of May 2017.
Thank you, Mr. Kendrick. Chair would welcome a motion and a second for unanimous consent. Motion from Mr. McCluskey, second from Mr. White. Okay. Roll call, Ms. Salter.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andress?
Yes.
Mr. Limbaugh?
Yes, this will be ordinance 2656, and the chair would welcome a motion and a second for adoption. Motion from Mr. McCluskey, second from
Second.
Ms. Smith. Roll
Okay.
call.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton? Yes. Mr. McCluskey?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andress?
Yes.
And Mr. Limbaugh?
Yes, so this is passed unanimously. Next is 280417, request for consideration of a transfer of fiber optic franchise agreement with Southern Light LLC, requested by City Attorney and Melody Salter, our city clerk.
Mr. Limbaugh, I have that one wrong. That's on me too, both of these words. That's an ordinance also, so we'll have
No
to go through the
problem.
same.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, I misunderstood what you asked me. It's a resolution.
Oh, it's a resolution. Okay, sorry. Okay.
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 Thank you. Report from Finance, Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir. The committee voted 4-0 to recommend approval for the transfer of the franchise agreement. So this is really a transfer.
Great. So we have a motion from Finance. Any other comments or questions? There being none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is unanimous. And that will be Resolution 1779. Is that correct, Mr. Kendrick?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. 290417, request for consideration of a recommendation for program manager from Board of Education, Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, the committee voted 4-0 to recommend approval to council. They're selecting HPM as the project manager, and that's to be funded by the 2016 bond proceeds issued by us.
Great. So we have a motion from Finance. Any further questions? There being none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that is unanimous, and that is Resolution 1780. All right, committee referral. Chair would welcome a motion for approval and a second.
So moved. Oh, second.
Motion from Ms.
You can give it-
Smith, second from Mr. Gwaltney. If there's no other discussion, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that is unanimous.
Mr. Limbaugh, we added 1905
We
to
did.
that one. Okay.
Yes, we
All right.
did. Other new business. Request to set a public hearing and referral to the Special Issues Committee for consideration of a variance to the sign ordinance at 400 Green Springs Highway, requested by Gary Potts, Greg Cobb, our BEZ department. That public hearing is set for May 22nd, 2017 at 6 p.m. 080517, request to set a public hearing and refer to Special Issues for consideration of a variance to the sign ordinance at 201 Montgomery Lane in order to extend a side yard chain link fence beyond the front line of the house, requested by Betty West, the owner, and Wyatt Pugh, a building official, and that too is set for May 22nd, 2017 at 6 p.m. 090517, request to set a public hearing and refer to Special Issues Committee for consideration of a variance to the sign ordinance at 1250 Columbiana Road, requested by Sandy Owens, Greg Cobb, and our BEZ department, and this public hearing is set for May 22nd, 2017 at 6 p.m. 100517, request to set a public hearing and refer to Planning and Development Committee for consideration of a zoning application of FRZ LLC on behalf of the current property owner, Fred Chinara, to rezone 819 Green Springs Highway from GERD to R7, which is attached dwelling unit district, for the purpose to permit the development of new townhouses, requested by Vanessa McGrath, our senior planner, and that is set for June 12th, 2017 at 6 p.m. All right. 110517, request to set a public hearing and refer to Planning and Development for consideration of zoning of Coker Holdings LLC on behalf of current property owner Tim Coker to rezone 2756B in Montgomery Street and to amend the development plan for MXD, or mixed-use district zoning classification, for the purpose to permit the enlargement of an existing structure requiring both Planning Commission and City Council approval in the mixed-use district zoning, requested by Vanessa McGrath, our senior planner. And this public hearing will be set for June 12th at 2017 at 6 p.m. Now, 140517, request for consideration of an ABC 040 retail beer and 060 retail table line for Balahai LLC, doing business as Hampton Inn, located at 30 State Farm Parkway. City Clerk, are we ready to proceed
The
or
the
not?
last I heard that police cleared but not cleared from fire, and then we need to carry it over. Is that what you heard, Mr. McCollum?
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes, Mr. President, that is correct. The police have signed off on it, but fire still has some issues. I actually talked to the hotel owner today, and they're going to get the fire chief back out there to take a look, and it should be done by the end of this week. So we should be able to approve it at the next meeting.
So we will carry this over.
We will carry this over, please.
Okay, good. No problem. 150517, request for consideration of engineering drawings for Central Avenue and amend the general fund engineering services line item 0112-520200 for a not to exceed $20,000 amount. Walter Jones, Melody Salter, and Greg Cobb. Is there a report on this, Mr. Jones? I would not want you to miss an opportunity.
There's really not, there's not on this. We had thought that we could proceed earlier, and then Mr. Cobb came back and basically requested additional funding. So I believe Mr. Cobb maybe has an update for us, but we had to.
Come forward, Mr.
We had
Cobb.
to carry it over because we didn't have all the information for,
Well, we actually had a resolution from the last item, but it didn't provide for any funding, so we just made a new item for the funding.
Do we have all the information we need, Mr. Cobb?
You mean to vote this tonight? Just go ahead and vote yes, sir. You got it right. You're good.
The resolution has a appropriation up not to exceed $20,000.
Yes, sir. I'm working on it.
Okay.
That's right, Mr. President. We had to carry it over because we didn't really know the amount, and so.
Right.
So I would move that we approve amending the general fund engineering services line item not to exceed $20,000 for the engineering drawings for Central Avenue.
All right, thank you, sir. So we have a motion by Mr. Jones. Do we have a second? Second from Mr. Thames. All right, this will be Resolution 1781 if approved. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Again, that is 1781. Thank you, Mr. Cobb. 160517, request for a consideration of a resolution to authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with B.L. Harbert International LLC for construction management services for the public safety and park projects from our city attorney. Chair would welcome a motion and a second.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Smith, second by Mr. Thames. All in favor, well, first, are there any comments or questions? There being none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that is 1782. 170517, request for consideration to authorize the Homewood Environmental Commission to apply for the Tree City USA recognition for the city of Homewood, requested by Mike Higginbotham. Chair would welcome a motion and a second.
So moved.
Motion
Second.
by Mr. Higginbotham, second by Ms. Andrews. Any questions or clarification?
I had a quick question.
Mr.
Sure.
Jones.
So there was no cost to do this, was there? I didn't see any information.
No, Mr. Jones, there's no cost associated with it. It's really just a thing where you submit an application, and if you meet the criteria, you get it. If you don't, then you don't. And they came at it a little late this season, so it may be the case that we don't get it this year, but that does not necessarily mean we won't get it next year. But it'll be a good learning experience to try to apply this year. But no, there's no cost associated.
Okay.
As has been communicated to me, I did ask someone to be here to address it, but they're not here. So,
Okay, thank you for leading that.
All right, anything else? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is Resolution 1783. All right, lastly, 180517, request for consideration of approval of vouchers for a period of April 24th, 2017 through May 7th, 2017. And Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir. I reviewed all the invoices and had a few questions. It was a short run, but I would move from the floor to approval of the vouchers from April 24th to May 7th.
All right, motion from Mr. Jones, second from Ms. Smith. Any further comments? If there are none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That is Resolution 1784. We now move to the portion of our meeting where we welcome Mayor McBrayer to make some comments.
Thank you, Mr. President and council. Let's start off by saying for everyone that had the opportunity to come out for the We Love Homewood Day, it was just a great event. And I was amazed, especially when we got down toward Dawson and then to the street party there in Edgewood, just the amount of people. There may have been a larger crowd in the past, but I don't remember it. And the amount of the young kids that were there, and just a good mix, and everything that's good about Homewood and our restaurants and the people and the atmosphere. So thank y'all very much for supporting that and being there. And then this Saturday, I think the Boy Scout Troop 97 has got their pancake breakfast at Trinity. So that'll be a huge event for them. And then lastly, I'll just remind you, if you're traveling out of town to get to see your mom for Mother's Day, be careful traveling. Of course, Sunday's Mother's Day, and so happy Mother's Day to all you moms. So I'll specifically kind of get a little jump with Melody and Barry, Jennifer. And I would just say you're all great moms. We see your kids, and we know that you think an awful lot of them, but we also know that they're awfully proud of you for all that you do for your family and for the city of Homewood. So happy Mother's Day to you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Gwaltney?
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologize for my congested nature this evening. So I wanted to start out by recognizing the Homewood Library, and our director, Ms. Fout, is here tonight. The library was the recipient of a NASA at My Library grant. It's issued by NASA in their STEM program. It's a multi-year grant for a couple of $1,000s, renewable for up to 2 years. There are over 513 applicants, and 73 libraries won. So it says a lot to our library and what they bring to the city, and Mrs. Fout's leadership as well. So thank you for that. Also, you'll find in your boxes tonight the library's annual report is waiting on you. So flip through it. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me or Mrs. Fout. We'll get those answered. And finally, oh, and I forgot, the library also won Best Float at We Love Homewood Day.
We need to recount on that one.
And that applause was not just for the float, that was also for you. So.
And finally, kudos to Berkeley and Rusty and their entire team for an excellent and flawless event. It didn't seem like there were any hitches, and everything seemed to go very well. Thank you.
Agreed. Mr. James?
We need to give Ms. Fowler accolades at the beginning of the meeting, I think, next time.
I agree. You waited a long time for that, ma'am.
Well,
you're kind.
Yeah, thank our streets and our parks department for Saturday. It was fantastic. The mayor dialed up some fantastic weather too. Melody and her whole team, especially Claire, really did a fantastic job on the float. It was a lot of fun. Amanda and I want to thank everybody for being showing concern and asking about Parker. He was fine. He was right back to terrorizing us in the neighborhood on Sunday. So, but we appreciate it. It was touching, and thanks to the parks too, who ran us back home, so we didn't have to walk home to get our vehicle to run up to Children's. But I will set P&D for 5 o'clock.
How long?
I'll need 30 minutes. We've got multiple items here.
Well, you have several items. Do you think 30 will get it? I'm just asking.
I think it will.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Higginbotham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just echo all the previous comments about all the fantastic work that went into We Love Homewood Day and these amazing shirts. Mr. Wolverton has his there, so he can display it if he wants to. But just sort of...
you could hold it up.
Yeah, hold it up for everybody. Let this enormous crowd see
Yeah,
what we
right.
are talking about here. Fantastic. That's all those watching at home. All 5 of those watching at home will be able to see the shirt. But again, just fantastic job by everybody involved with that. Only had 2 things I wanted to call everyone's attention to coming up this week. Of course, everybody knows that tomorrow evening, I believe it's 6 o'clock at the Senior Center, Homewood Parks and Recreation is hosting a community meeting for folks to come and talk about some of the plans for Patriot Park, as well as some of those for West Homewood Park. I would encourage people to come out who have questions or want to just have more information about what's going on. It's a good opportunity to have your opinion heard. And secondly, want to mention the Patriot Park Street Fest, which is occurring from 4 to 9 on May the 13th. Great event over in West Homewood with music and inflatables and food, and I think we're going to have some booths from West Homewood Farmers Market, some early opportunities to participate in those booths. And so I invite everybody to come out to this great free event. Of course, the food is not free, but attending the event is free, and I would encourage you all to come out every year. It's every time they've done it, which has been this is the 3rd time. It's been a fabulous event, and so really encourage you to take advantage of that and come and see what West Homewood has to offer. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Wolverton.
Yeah, Mike's going to steal my thunder on most big announcements because he gets to go first every time. But so I'll second that. I think it's important not only for people in West Homewood to be a part of that parks discussion tomorrow, but anybody from every ward, just because the renovations are going to affect everybody in all of Parks and Rec as well. Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it to We Love Homewood Day. I wanted to make the float. We were supposed to get into Atlanta from a missions trip on Saturday at 4. Plane got delayed. So anyway, my wife was going to come, and then my daughter got sick. So hopefully next year. We've been there before, but it'd be fun to ride the float and do all that. What was the other thing? I'm trying to remember. Sorry. I'll think about it, and if I remember, I'll try and.
Thank you, Mr. Wolverton. Mr. McCluskey.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Again, reiterating the Tuesday Park Board meeting, I think it's imperative that everybody come out. We Love Homewood Day was an incredible success. It's always so nice to have such beautiful weather on that day, and thanks to Melody and her team, and of course the Park and Rec and Street and Sanitation guys. I still can't. It fathers me every time that by the next morning, all that candy and all that trash is gone. It's just disappears. It's incredible. So they do a fantastic job. I will set public safety. You said that you only need 30 minutes? Okay. Public safety at 5:30. And then I have to do a little bit of bragging on some of our younger citizens in Homewood. We all have, I guess, neighbors and, that are adults that do a lot in our community, whether it's on boards or councils or church groups, whatever it may be, that are very involved. But there is a 5th grader named Aiden Cockrell at Hall Kent Elementary School, who you might have seen Facebook post about his venture to the World Dwarf Games in Canada. That's coming up in, I believe it's July. There is a group of about 30 5th graders from all different schools that have decided to help Aiden get to the World Dwarf Games by doing a fundraising basketball 3-on-3 tournament that will be May 21st, Sunday, May 21st. And this group of boys, and my son is a part of this, have split themselves up into committees to where they're in charge of different parts of this tournament, whether it's the marketing for it, and then the actual running of the tournament, and getting the teams together, deciding on how the game is going to be played, how the scoring is going to. We're letting them run the whole thing, and we had our first meeting this morning, and these boys are absolutely jacked about doing this for Aiden. It's a very it's a very special time for him, but I think it's really neat to see that the sense of community that we all feel as adults, it shows up in our kids too. It really does. To be able to see that is just, it's fantastic. So again, hope everybody can make it out. But if you know of any basically fourth or fifth graders, because they will be playing on 10-foot goals, fourth or fifth graders that would like to put a team together, it's 3v3. They ask for a minimum of a $10 donation per player, so it'd be $30 for a team to come in and play. Every bit of the proceeds goes to Aiden's fund to get to Canada for the World Dwarf Games. But if you have anybody, just contact me and I'll help you get everybody set up. So, and that's it.
Thank you, Mr. McCluskey. How long for public safety?
15 minutes.
Okay, so 5:30 to 5:45. Mr. Jones.
I'll call finance for 5:45 next Monday. And I'll second that about Aiden. Aiden is our constituent. Lives on Broadway, and my son Winston's been on several of his teams, and he's a great athlete, and he just has such a great spirit and great attitude about everything. So I think that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Mayor, you started off your comments, getting me all emotional, about, first of all, you talking about Mother's Day, but then, like, the next 2 weeks are going to be very emotional for me. I guess a few things that are going on in my life. The next Tuesday night, Winston will be in the Birmingham Boys Choir concert, which will be at Dawson, and that's at 6 o'clock. And then the high school's having their awards day ceremony on Thursday the 18th. And then baccalaureate is May the 21st, which is Sunday at 3. And then graduation is next Monday at 7. So I've been on this council a long time, and I've always wondered why we have graduation on Monday night, but that's the way it is, and a lot of people have to miss. So I'm going to be here as long as I can, I guess, and then I'll have to leave because I don't want to miss, Emma Grace's graduation. So
Absolutely. A question on that point, Mr. Kendrick, could we start that meeting at 5? Or
it's at 7, so that'd be great.
what do you think?
Yeah, fine with us.
Yeah, 2 weeks from tonight.
Yeah, I don't want to mess everybody up.
No, that's fine.
No, I don't think that's miss.
But-
No.
Yeah, I'd love for that.
If y'all would make a motion in a second and we all vote for it, or do I just set it?
I'll make a motion for 5 o'clock on May
Right.
22nd.
Oh, yeah.
Would you help me with that, Mr. Jones?
Sure, yeah.
I know we still have one of the residents here. Okay. So, wait a minute. Motion from Ms. Andrus, second from Ms. Smith. Mr. Higginbotham, great. Sorry, Mr. Higginbotham. Well, I can make that change, of course, without a vote. Yeah, the others are June, so if you could change those three.
Brian's giving us a look. What's up, Brian? Mike's.
We're changing the times to, or the motion is to change them to 5 o'clock. So we have a motion from Ms. Andrews, second from Mr. Higginbotham. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Good. Okay. Now, how long do you need with finance?
30 minutes.
Okay, so 5:45 to 6:15. Ms. Smith?
Just again, echo the comments from everybody about what We Love Homewood Day. It was wonderful. Melody's staff always does a fantastic job of getting us all set up for a cute, adorable float. And like Patrick said, I went to Trinity to work at 7:45 on Sunday morning, and there was not a family in front of the church, which was amazing because I saw how much there was on the ground when we drove by. So the fact that they're able to get that done so quickly and in such a fantastic fashion. It's just really amazing. And I will set special issues for 6:15. And
Great.
I don't know if, I guess Mr. Wright's not setting.
Well, I don't think there's anything for Public Works.
Is there not anything on that
There's
one? Okay.
nothing for Public Works,
All
so.
right, so that's it.
So yours is the
6:15.
fourth and
I'm the-
last.
yes.
There you go.
Mhm.
Mr. White?
Just want to echo what everyone said. Had a great time at We Love Homewood Day, thanks to Melody and her staff and Parks and Rec and everybody else. Also wanted to mention that the girls' track team won state again.
Still up for me.
Which is the third year in a row?
Fourth.
Fourth year in a row.
Fourth.
And they also won the Triple Crown for the second year in a row, where they won cross-country, indoor, and outdoor in the same year.
Wow.
And the boys got runner-up, just a hair short of state champions, and I think that's their second year as runner-up. So the track teams are doing well and probably will continue to do well for many years. So
Good. Miss Andrus is grinning from ear to ear about
Yeah,
that.
well, my son's going to be running next year in August, so for the high school, so I'm very excited. I'm very excited for the track, and we know so many of our friends' kids, and we're so proud of all of them, and of course, the coaching staff, too. So, and I wanted to thank Melody and Claire. I also wanted to mention the We Love Homewood Day 5K, which had over 400 registrants. I was not
Wow.
there. I had a trail race that day, but I saw the video, and there were just tons of people, kids. It looked great. I wanted to make sure you guys knew about the ribbon cutting groundbreaking ceremony at Vulcan, this is the Kiwanis Centennial Project, and it's up at the park, and they're going to be doing a new north-facing plaza, and they're going to be doing a new trail, and they're going to eventually connect to our sidewalks. And they are going to be installing a light show. So, Eiffel Tower, Empire State Building kind of thing is going to be at Vulcan. So it's a $4 million project that they are undertaking. And Tom Thagard spoke at the Homewood Kiwanis Club last week, and Peter invited me to attend. And Tom wanted to make sure you all know you're all invited. And Peter and I will be there. It's at 3:30, Friday, May 19th at Vulcan. So,
Thanks, Miss Andrus.
Thank you.
I don't want to minimize what Melody did for We Love Homewood's parade, but I will tell you, Claire did a phenomenal job with the decorating and the float and the planning of the T-shirts, and she's a real talent. And,
She is the creative arts genius behind the city clerk.
So we were most appreciative. Quick war story. Miss Smith's husband and I sat down together, and I had 2 very large buckets of candy. And he looked at me, he said, "There's no way you're going to throw all that." And I said, "Mr. Smith, I'm quite sure that we will throw all that." And we ran out before we got to the end of the parade, even though, as the mayor said, that had to be our largest crowd we'd ever had. I don't know in my entire 64 years I've ever seen so many smiling faces in one place at one time, and I know just by the comments tonight, that warms everyone's heart. With that, we stand. I'm sorry. Mr. Kendrick asked for a comment.
Yes, sir. I apologize for waiting till last, but I wanted to make sure there's a complete understanding about the resolution dealing with the 290417, which is the HORE adoption by the school board. I'd called Mr. Jones on Friday, and to his credit, he was out of town, and really, we both tried to come up with what we understood to be the total amount of the proposal, and the number that we've used is Exhibit A on the HPM financial proposal, the total proposal of the $290,000. There's an additional sheet that I don't understand if it's part of the proposal or not, but the resolution you adopted adopts the $290,000 figure. I just want to make sure, unless someone had a different understanding, I hadn't been involved in that other than receiving it by email.
All right.
I just want to make sure that you
No,
knew what.
thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Kendrick, for that
Thank you.
clarification, and we will stand adjourned. Thank you.
I'm getting overwhelmed with looking at the things I'm going to have to do for next year. So, shall we
Where's she going, Walter? Is she going to Auburn? No, she's going to Alabama. I know, it was her boyfriend's from Auburn, though.
No, they broke up.
Oh, did they really? Did they really?
Said, I'm not taking any baggage to Alabama.